You can catch a disease if it's contagious, but surprisingly, you can catch a behavior too. Suicides, homicides, and mass shootings are also contagious. Hey everyone, thanks for watching D-News Today. I'm Trace. We're all familiar with the idea that the flu is contagious. I sneeze on you, you get the virus, and you get sick. But behaviors can also be contagious, and for a number of reasons. Yawning is a great example. Simply saying yawn can trigger yawning. Did you yawn yet? That is a contagious behavior, if an innocuous one. Scientists think that it has to do with empathy, the understanding and sharing of the feelings of another, but after a major study in 2014, they're still scratching their heads on it. Speaking of scratching, does talking about itching make you want to do, an itch? Do you got one? Itching behavior is also contagious, and so is laughter, especially when things are awkward. Laugh tracks are Hollywood's way of triggering that empathetic humor response. In one study, researchers from the University of Hawaii showed videos of people describing a positive or negative memory. And when showing that video, they found that people who were watching felt more akin to the nonverbal emotion of the person in the video, and not the things they were saying. Basically, if you feel emotion when talking to a person, it's possible the person is feeling that same emotion. Our brains contain mirror neurons, which are specifically designed for mimicking the behavior of our social peers. When people watch sports and see a player throw a ball, their brain sends signals to their arm that mimic that movement. It's both psychological and physiological. Unfortunately, this can go well beyond sports and movies and yawning and itching. Research on suicide contagion is as old as recorded history. As much as 5% of all suicides may be a result of contagious behavior. When suicides happen in school or when celebrities commit suicide, suicide clusters begin, usually in teens and young adults. Malcolm Gladwell wrote extensively about contagious behavior in his book, The Tipping Point. We are social animals. So when we see behavior happening, we emulate it, physiologically, emotionally, and apparently violently. Since 1991, the rates of murder, robbery, rape, and assault are all down. In fact, these crimes are lower today than at any time in the last 50 years. The number of mass shootings, however, has sharply increased since the year 2000, according to the FBI. There are now an average of around 16 mass shootings a year in the US, or perhaps as many as one every 12.5 days, depending on how you count them. Using this data, a paper in PLOS One found on average, one school shooting inspires 0.22 more school shootings, and a mass shooting inspires 0.3 more mass shootings, peaking every 13 days. Mathematically, if you have 4 mass shootings in a short period, chances are one of those was inspired by one of the others. When shootings include more than 3 people, it was more sensational and then had increased media coverage and could then be considered a contagious behavior. Combating the negativity of contagious behavior may be as simple as holding each other accountable for our actions before we get there, being open, clear, and honest about our negative effects. For example, after Kurt Cobain's suicide in 1991, the media focused on the effects on his surviving family and the sadness of his friends and fans, lowering the suicide rate in the US. This was really shocking, but it actually makes a lot of sense. A positive behavioral contagion beat a negative one. Health researchers have looked at this for a while, and they study peers' positive motivation being contagious in exercise and healthy habits. Perhaps these darker behaviors are susceptible to that as well. There hasn't been a ton of research on gun violence in the United States, in part because Congress banned federal funding for gun violence research in '97. However, if more research can uncover how violent behavior like suicide and mass killing is contagious, the implications are huge. And as usual, more research is definitely needed. One of my other shows, Test Tube News, has talked a lot about gun violence and mass shootings in the past, so if you want to know more about those in the United States, click here.
Inherent in America's birth is the idea that freedom and liberty must be defended with force. Today, although the political and military situation has changed, many Americans continue to associate freedom with gun ownership.
But on a happier note, NASA is about to fly by Pluto, and we are doing a live Google Hangout with our space producer Ian O'Neill and a special guest who's actually inside Mission Control. It's going to be awesome. Come join us on July 14th at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, and RSVP on the event page for a reminder. There's also a link down in the description. How do you feel about contagious behavior? Let us know down in the comments. Make sure you subscribe for more D-News, and thank you for watching.